the Substack chat?
Oh, I suppose.
Okay. Do you have the bandwidth to super cow powers the YouTube chat?
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm in Substack.
See if it crashes on me.
Picking up an echo somewhere. Okay, logged in.
Hello.
Yeah, like it's repeat. Maybe it's my headphones.
Check to make sure you've got Substack muted.
Yes.
I have. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I got both of them up. Oh my god, and my mother's calling. Really?
Speaking of dinner table.
That's classic dinner table. For sure.
Huh. Substack is going.
Okay. So we do have the Substack. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
Going.
give it a few minutes to let everybody filter in.
Let me open YouTube.
Okay. Oh gosh, we're already up to 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's fairly amazing.
Oh,
I would not have expected that we would have 10 people already. So that's actually kind of cool. That's actually really cool. Okay. Let's just give it a second. There we go. Okay. All right. So today for trauma survival and then ritual practice, we're going to talk about interesting topics. So the first topic that we're going to go into is family social gatherings as a minefield. Family gatherings can become, especially for a queer person, trans, gay, lesbian, intersex, asexual. And they really historically, family gatherings have been volatile for a very long time. Subtle cues about who's refilling their wine glass too quickly, or who's gearing up for another round of "I'm just asking questions," which is that statement is a signal for vigilant. I immediately become vigilant when I hear people say, "But I'm just asking questions," because usually those questions are, "Why are you gay?" or "Why are you trans?" or "Why do you like men?" and all those stupid ass questions. And so those settings become a stage where identity is scrutinized and boundaries are pushed, often violated, and safety is negotiated totally in real time. From my perspective, where this became more relevant than any other was during the death of a family member. And so my parents and my brother and my sister and their respective spouses flew in for this event. And so Kira and I went to the church. And there was a family gathering, and then the family all sat together at the front. Well, guess who didn't sit at the front? Me. And so that was extremely difficult to deal with. And so Kira and I are sitting in the back of the church, and my dad walks in with my sister and my brother, and my sister is visibly crying because I'm not allowed to sit. Later, she would tell me it's because I wasn't allowed to sit with the family. And when my dad walked by, he sort of like, he was walking and he lifted his hand up and he went like this because I was about to walk out with the family in the procession. And so, that was not a good experience. But what that experience reminded me is that you develop survival strategies. There was a wake after the funeral event was over. And so we went to the wake, and I stayed very close to the exit door of the room that we were standing in the wake. And I picked key specific people to walk up and approach. Because the person who passed was very close to my aunt, my dad's sister. And my aunt is hundreds of thousands of times more transphobic than any other member of my paternal family. And so a lot of her hatred cascades down. So while I was at the wake, for instance, I heard people saying, why does that thing have to come here? And why is that thing even allowed to be in here? And who let that thing in here? And why doesn't somebody make that thing leave? Because it stains the memory of the person we lost or whatever. And so, and this was a person that when I was younger, I had contact with and engagement with. And I had pictures, where I was sitting and talking to this person and everything else. And so that leads you to ask the question, what emotional labor is expected for us in those spaces? And who benefits from that labor? I don't know, from my perspective, sometimes survival just looks like smiling politely while I'm planning to duck out of a side door so I don't have to deal with it. It's a painful experience. How would anyone genuinely feel safe in a gathering like that? I can't imagine. So. I love this power, by the way.
Yes, we're all sitting here anticipating who will it be? Who will it be?
The closest thing I experienced to that was Christmas dinner with my in-laws, and it didn't turn out the way that I expected it to. In fact, nothing even came of it. But I went in prepared to burn Christmas dinner down.
Well, what did you expect?
Well, so my mother-in-law is under this impression that somehow Joe and I are going to get back together. She keeps telling him this. Like, oh, this isn't the end. Like, you guys could get back together, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, so she has no idea what's actually going on. All she knows is we're separated, that we're planning a divorce. That's all she knows. And I thought for sure that, like, that was going to come up somehow. And that I was going to be put in a position where I could just be like, well, maybe, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Or, put my foot down, like, no, this is how it is. And essentially just, almost flipping the dinner table. But none of that happened. Kate and I walked in, and we didn't behave any differently than we normally would have coming to any other dinner event there. We interacted with everybody exactly the same as we normally would have. No questions were asked. Nothing was said. We were treated like we belonged there because we walked in like we belonged there.
But you didn't find yourself like, where's the nearest door so that when this goes the fuck south or whatever, I can get the fuck out? Did you have an exit strategy walking into that scenario?
Kate and I had discussed like whether we were going to like have a look or a word that like we would know mutually, like, hey, this is time to go, but we never established it. And knowing my in-laws the way that I do, if I stood up and said that I was leaving, they would not have tried to get in my way because they're both small and frail. And I think at this point they know better. But yeah. Now if it was my mother's side of the family, that would have been a different story. But I don't associate with them.
What would make it different?
I mean, they're heavily religious and they're always, prying about personal life. And like even when Joe and I were together, like back when I got pregnant, I was talking about my friend Mark, and my Aunt Janice is like, well, why don't you marry Mark? And it's like, he's my brother. You have no idea what you're even suggesting. Like, we've known each other since the second grade. But they're always very judgmental about things, whether it be, the fact that I was pregnant out of wedlock, or the fact that, I waited until after Kate was born to get married. And then like now they'd be even more judgmental. Like, oh, you're getting divorced. Why are you getting divorced? Like, I haven't even told them that because I just don't want to have those conversations with them. They're not entitled to that part of my life.
Yeah, I kind of feel a similar way as far as not that I don't feel the need to tell my family certain things because they don't need to know that. In my family, there seems to be kind of an unwritten "don't ask, don't tell" policy. Nobody asks me if I'm seeing anybody because they don't want to know. I went to a anniversary party not too long ago, and even friends of the family, friends of the family, I make sure I'm saying that correctly. Nobody asked like if I was dating anybody or anything like that, because there was probably at least the suspicion that I could be dating a guy, and they don't want to know that. They don't want to hear that. So they just ask about other things. And
so I actually have a question about that.
What?
Do you distinguish self-protection versus self-erasure in those situations?
Right now, I don't know. I mean, in some ways, I feel like it's fine that they don't ask about that part of my life, because I don't need to tell everybody about that, about a relationship status or anything. But also the fact that I'm not seeing anybody also plays a role, because I wouldn't have anything to tell anyway. If they'd ask, "Am I seeing anybody?" I'd be like, no. But if I were, I don't know. I might feel differently about it then. But until that happens, I guess it's kind of a cross that bridge when I get there kind of thing. Now, at Thanksgiving, I brought a friend of mine, a straight female friend, and I did have some apprehension about that because I was afraid that somebody might have the crazy idea that we were dating or something. And you know,
You're giving them fucking hope.
I know. That's what I thought. I was like, well, we should not pretend at all like we're on that level, you know. And but we speaking of a safe word, is it a safe word, exit word? I don't know what
Right.
Sarah was talking about, because she's not used to, you know, a lot big families that she doesn't know or anything like that. And we didn't have a huge gathering, but still, I told her maybe we should come up with a word or phrase or something if she was feeling uncomfortable. She could, and you know, that would let me know, okay, it's time to leave. And so we came up with something, and after dinner, we were kind of sitting around talking and whatnot, and she said something about my cat Zoe, and I said, "What about her?" and she's like, "You know,"
I got Zoe.
and I'm like, and you know,
Brandon completely missing the code word.
no, but this is the issue, though. That was not the code word.
Oh, what was the code word?
I was like, why are you asking about my cat? You know, and that, you know, we were not within earshot of anybody, and she said the code word. I was like, that's not the code word. And so and neither of us could remember what it was.
Oh no.
But anyway, I mean, she basically, since she said the code word, mentioned that's the code word. I'm like, that's not the code word. But anyway, we figured out it was time to go. But
right.
Yeah, I remember sitting at home before we left. We were talking about it, and we came up with something, and I still cannot remember what it was. But anyway, next time we need to be more clear about what it is.
You need to write it down.
I know. I guess so. And we weren't even high or anything.
Banana. Hey,
What?
Brandon, I'm eating a banana.
That's code for something else. But
no, that's not the upside down pineapple. Everybody understands that, right? The upside down pineapple.
I know it means something. I don't remember what specifically.
You were talking about it in one live a while back, but yes, I
right. So the upside down pineapple, that you go to the grocery store and you put a pineapple upside down in your basket, and that tells all the swingers who are in the grocery store that you're available. So if you put a pineapple in your basket upside down and people approach you and say, "Hey, you know exactly." Here in Atlanta, we have a Kroger called the Murder Kroger.
Yay!
That's another thing entirely, is that there are Krogers in the Atlanta metro area all have names, but the murder Kroger, and it was called that because somebody was killed there.
We have a murder McDonald's.
Yes, and it took the Kroger and the city like months to clean up the mess on the side of the Kroger, which is why they call it the murder. But anyway, so but that was the Kroger that if you went in and put the pineapple upside down, you'd get like 10 people walk up to you or whatever. Hey, you want to have some fun?
Well,
So-
I am not going to be putting a pineapple upside down at our family gatherings, and I'm
Now
not
that would
going
be
to
interesting.
I mean, maybe that's when you find out that Aunt Rita, who's 76, prefers a different kind of guy than her husband.
I don't want to know about Aunt Rita and her proclivities. That's a don't ask, don't tell situation there.
Maybe she's a hot wife,
Mhm.
and the husband's a cuck. It happens. Onyx.
When I was younger, it was at the dinner table. It was do as you're told, eat this. Why? Don't ask why. Go ahead and eat this. As I got older, the questions around the dinner table and the conversation, we always kept it light. It wasn't deep. It wasn't probing. There were no questions. As a matter of fact, there's this meme that comes up that I always relate to that says something about, queer life is your parents not knowing what you did in your 20s and 30s, or not knowing you in your 20s and 30s. And yeah, I relate to that a lot. My parents don't really know me. I've purposely kept things from them. I've hidden a lot of my life because I know they won't approve. They are like, my whole family is religious. I am not, and that is something that we butt heads on all the time. Sarah said something about burning things down. Whenever I get into a manic episode, just everything comes out, and to the fault of myself, and my parents don't want to hear it, but they get to hear it anyway, and that's how they learn so much about me. Otherwise I would never say anything. It's just not something. It's a like everyone said, it's a don't ask, don't tell. And part of it is self-preservation. Part of it is just like, fuck you, all these years, and you've never probed, you never questioned, you've never asked, you've had to have some idea, but nothing. So in terms of being in like areas with the whole family, whether it be parties, someone's birthday, events outside the house, me and Egg just have a look, and we know usually it's around 2 hours. 2 hours, and that's our breaking point. I have to leave, flee, and we need to be back in our own part of the world, where we can both recover. We just don't do family events all that long. We did do one family, what's it called, when all your extended family gets together, and that was kind of crazy and probably something we won't ever do again. Just too many family members that did not agree with the way we lived our lives. So that was all a mess, 100%. Yeah.
I certainly understand. No, I'm not picking on you again. I'm sorry, I lost control of the window.
I wasn't done.
I'm sorry, I lost control of the windows. So I was thinking about the next section of topic over the weekend, and somebody that I was talking to, she asked me, she was like, some days your makeup looks really good, you're dressed really well, and your presentation is approachable. But there are other occasions where it isn't. And, how does that affect you? And so choosing what you're going to wear, what you're going to put on your face, what you're going to put on your put in your ears. That isn't just, pre-transition. It was throw on a pair of jeans, throw on a pair of tennis shoes, and pick a Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, or some other 80s heavy metal band t-shirt. And that was my fashion statement at work for a long time. But, as a queer person, as a trans person, that's either an affirmation or a betrayal. So what textures, what silhouettes, and what fit become tied to dysphoria. They can be extremely dysphoric. And then further still, from my perspective, the better that I get at it, like if I hit it way up on the head, I can look perfect to myself. I could go out into a social situation and somebody could choose to have a serious problem with that, which it's happened before. And so from my perspective, the mirror becomes a negotiation. A long time ago, I just quit wearing earrings. I need to wear them more often because when I do wear them, they frame my face in a certain way and it looks attractive. But, like 3 or 4 years ago, I quit wearing earrings. And so the mirror becomes a negotiation table where identity versus comfort versus public perception, they all collide with each other. And so, from that perspective, I look at my wardrobe and my makeup counter as a toolkit. Clothing is the language we speak before we say anything to anybody in a social situation. And so, the thing that I have to sort of that I have to think about is how does dysphoria shape my daily routines in ways that other people probably would never be aware of. Because how I dress for work, versus how I dress when I don't go into work on days like today, or how do I dress when I have to drive up outside the perimeter to go and pick our kids up? And, it's like, if I'm going to go into a deeply red, not trans-friendly area, what I think is a non-trans friendly area, that means flats, leggings, and a neutral blouse, and I don't put any makeup on. I really don't. So, honestly, I'm gonna let you go.
Yay! So yeah, I'm trans too, and certainly makeup and dress is an important part of my daily routine. Not so much makeup. When I first came out, makeup, I needed to be good at it. And then as I started getting further along in my transition, I was like, you know what, screw it. I don't need the makeup. It's not going to really, it's, I am trans and I'm visibly trans. So I'm just not going to work with it. As far as clothing, Egg said that the first time she saw me put on a dress and start twirling, is that the moment it just like locked for her. She understood that me as a trans person, this is what I needed to do, and that she couldn't deny me this joy. It was a release for me. And from that point on, I had to stop pretending. And so I pretty much gave away all my guy clothes. I traded in like the rough jeans texture and the boring shirts and the wallet, the keys, and the phone for bags and purses and flowy skirts and dresses and prints, and started doing makeup again. Like after my last surgery, I had several gender affirming surgeries because of the dysphoria. Dysphoria can tell you a lot of fucking things that may or may not be true. I've had like reinforcements that pushed me to get some reassignment surgeries, not reassignment, but gender affirming surgeries. As far as clothing and makeup, yeah, I put on makeup today. I'm trying to cover up a little bit of the stuff that's going on in terms of my last surgery, but I don't like to make it so that people can tell so much. Just a little bit here and a little bit there, a little razzle dazzle. I do my lips a lot because I love my lips. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Wardrobe selection, my goodness. I can't say that I put a lot of thought into it other than what is going to fit and what feels comfortable. Like if I could get away with wearing sweatpants to work, I would. Because jeans just, I don't know, they don't sit right, they don't fit right. They're either too small or too big, and the same pair aren't going to fit the same way twice. Comfort above all else.
Yeah, but why?
Why? Why wouldn't I want to be comfortable? I'm so uncomfortable in every other aspect of my life. Why not be comfortable in my clothing?
It's all about comfortability, right? What small wardrobe choices have the biggest emotional impact? Do wardrobe choices have an emotional impact on you, and why or why not?
So this isn't so much a wardrobe choice now because everything's been switched over to this, but there was I was having a medical issue, and it had to do with like sweat and stuff like that. So I switched over to they're essentially boxers, but they're designed for women. And
are they Walksters?
No, it's
okay.
It's by Duluth Trading Company.
Oh, right.
And I wasn't sure how I felt about them when I first got them, but I ended up really liking them and have switched everything over to those over the past 3 or 4 years. 3 years.
I hate using this term, but I have to ask: do you wear boxers and a wife beater?
I wear a variety of tank tops to sleep in.
Yeah, and then too, why are white tank top shirts called a wife? I never understood why it was called that.
Because it's a stereotypical outfit of somebody who beats their wife.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I sort of figured that, but have we reached a point where we can't use that terminology anymore because it's clearly toxic? I hope so.
I mean, I don't use that terminology anymore.
No.
I don't use it either. Ribbed tank top
Yeah, ribbed for your pleasure.
Ribbed for her pleasure, Brandon. I'm just gonna ask.
I mean, what other word can you?
It makes me think of my mom talking about, you know how they've got the Ruffles commercials where they say ruffles have ridges?
Oh.
My mom says rubbers have ridges.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Oh. Many
So
people
I'm just gonna say, Brandon, for you, I don't necessarily think it's so much about clothing, but I mean, let's be honest. You put makeup on, right?
I do sometimes.
Okay. When do you do that versus when do you not do that?
Yeah, I was gonna go into that.
Okay, perfect.
Many people say or like to say that they don't care what people think, and sometimes I like to think that I believe that about myself, but it's not true. I do care what people think, because one of the reasons I know that is because of the way I dress when I go out. Sarah was talking about being comfortable. I would choose fashion over comfort.
Yep.
I want to look good when I go out. If right now I'm wearing sweatpants because you can't see them.
Same.
But I'm wearing a nice looking sweater because that's what you're gonna see. And if I were gonna go out and want to be comfortable, I could wear sweatpants and a fleece shirt that's a baggy shirt or whatever. But I don't want to look. I feel like I might look sloppy. I feel nice. I feel comfortable, but I don't want other people to say, "Oh, look at this. What's going on with this?" You know. And so I dress to look good or better. Now, I sometimes wear makeup depending on where I'm going. I do not wear makeup when I know I'm going over to my parents' house or relatives because I'm afraid they might notice that I'm wearing makeup and ask me about it or say something about it and ask if I'm trying to be a girl or something like that or whatever. Earrings too. Sometimes they know my ears are pierced and I wear earrings around them, but there's sometimes that I don't, like if I don't know, if I'm going to an event at a local church or something like that, I may not wear earrings to that because a lot of the churches around here are very conservative. And even though nowadays tons of straight guys wear earrings, in both ears, there's no, how it used to be. There was
that coding is a lie, by the way.
No hanky code.
Yeah. The earring thing, wearing it in one ear meant one thing, and I don't think that's not really a thing anymore because most guys now, when they get their ears pierced, they'll pierce them both. I think sometimes it's just one, but it seems like it's pretty common. But even so, my family and a lot of people around here are still kind of stuck in that conservative mindset, that time period where guys don't wear earrings. Guys aren't supposed to wear earrings. And it just depends on where I'm going, who I'm going to see. There was one day not too long ago, I was out at a local store, and I saw my aunt there, who is very conservative and judgmental. I've mentioned her many times before, but I was wearing makeup at that time, a little bit. Not, I don't think it was too obvious. I don't know, and I didn't have glasses on. So I had a little bit of eye makeup, mascara, and a little bit of eyeliner, I think. I can't remember. And I saw her, and I quickly got my glasses out and put them on, and I was like, well, maybe that'll at least hide a little bit of it. I don't want her, because she would probably say something, and I didn't want to have that conversation. But yeah, I still, along with the family dinners and things, I choose avoidance a lot of times. I just don't want to deal with the confrontation, the questions, interrogations. I just rather avoid it, and if I have to change a little bit depending on the situation, it doesn't really bother me. It's not like part of who I am. I do enjoy it, enjoy putting it on, and if I'm going somewhere in public where I might be meeting somebody new or whatever, but it's not like, I don't know, it's not like, I don't feel like it's a part of who I am, that I always need to wear it and people need to get used to it, that kind of thing. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal to me.
Well, I completely understand. Believe me, I do. So now I'm the target. So the other thing that I was going to talk about today was queer inclusive living. Well, we could talk about queer inclusive living spaces or office chatter. I feel like queer inclusive living spaces is a better thing to talk through. Because here's the thing, finding housing isn't just about square footage or rent. Before I transitioned, living in an apartment was, which apartment could I afford? And was it nearby? Was it advantageous for me to live there because I could get to work? But, in queer spaces, as much as progressive spaces, you now have to factor in the fucking neighborhood. I was living in Marietta, dead center of Cobb County, Georgia, when I started my transition. And I did not want to live there and go through gender transition. I just didn't. And the reason that I didn't was because, I didn't feel safe in those areas. And as it turns out, there were some things that became evident of that. Because remember, this was, 2019 going into 2020. Trump was in his first term, and I started my transition. So I started female presenting. And there was one occurrence where I went to the Kroger, which, by the
murder
way,
one.
No, not the murder one. The one on the corner of Whitlock and Burnt Hickory Road, virtually in the city of Marietta. And the reason that I would go to that Kroger was because I lived literally right behind it. The apartment complex I was living in at the time was right behind it. So I went there one day, and I was wearing 6-inch stilettos and opaque tights and a mini skirt and a crop top, and I did my makeup like flawlessly, and I had one of my wigs on even. And I went to the store to pick up grocery items because my therapist was like, you need to present and go out in public. And so I did. And so I pulled up, and while I was getting ready and working up my nerve to get out of the car and go into the store, it was this sort of situation where, so I got out. Well, as I was getting out, somebody had pulled next to me, and they were getting out at the same time. And my vigilance, I was keenly aware of everything, and I was constantly looking around. Well, I took 5 steps out of my car, and I hear a voice behind me go, "Hey." And I turned around to see who it was. Maybe it was somebody I knew. Didn't sound like it, but it was a guy. And he looked at me and he said, and I'm going to use slurs to convey this story, I thought Trump was going to deport all of you faggots to another country where you belong, because you don't belong here fucking up our country. And so I and when I looked to the left, I noticed his van had MAGA stickers and shit all over it. And so anybody who's seen me, Sarah has seen me in real life. So was Onyx too, a while ago, but I'm 6'6" and I weigh about 250. So in 6-inch stilettos, I'm even taller than that. And so I walked over to him, visibly looking down on him. And I didn't realize there were like 3 or 4 people standing around. I took my glasses off and I went, "Hey, you know what? I think you're really cute. And I think what we should do, we should get into your van, and we should go to the back behind the store, because I really want to do stuff to you." And put my glasses back on, settled my purse back on my shoulder, and walked out. So, and he ran. He dove back into his van and drove off. And so as I was walking out of the store, this lady walked up to me and said, "Hey, can I bother you for a second?" And I was hyper vigilant. Okay, yes. And she said, "I saw what you did earlier, and I just want to tell you that makes you very brave, and you should keep doing that, because not everybody that lives in this town thinks that about you." And I said, "Thank you." But what that says is, when we live in spaces, we have to be aware of how our presentation, how our behavior, and everything else could make people do things. So naturally, and Onyx is going to know what I'm talking about when I say this. So when I started my hormone replacement therapy journey, I moved. And I moved to Ansley Park, which is the gayest fucking neighborhood in Atlanta.
The gayborhood.
Yeah. Ansley Park, for many, many years, has been the gayest neighborhood in Atlanta. And to be very clear, Ansley Mall, which is right next to Ansley Forest, which was the complex I lived in, by the way, 90% of the people that lived in Ansley Forest were queer people. That's the gayest apartment complex ever, bar none. And so, but within walking distance of Ansley Forest is Ansley Mall, and Ansley Mall has Felix's, which is a gay bar, and the Hideaway, which is a gay bar, and there's like 4 other queer establishment bars like right there. And so that, in my mind at the time, that was the gayest place that I could live, where I would work on my transition and it wouldn't be a problem. I'd walk out of my living space and people wouldn't care. Categorically, the next 2 places that I moved, it was the same deal. I moved to Brookhaven because Brookhaven, the east side of Brookhaven, so Brookhaven on the east end, which is La Vista and Briarcliff, very gay friendly, very Jewish. Beth Jacobson is the synagogue that's there, but very progressive Jewish neighborhood. So very queer friendly neighborhood. Didn't have a problem there. And then moved here, East Lake, which I literally predicated on moving here based on the number of pride flags that were hanging up on houses in the neighborhood. That was how I decided to move here. But what that means is community networks become essential, screening landlords through queer circles, mapping neighborhoods, driving through neighborhoods, and like seeing how the neighborhood presents before you decide to move there. Those are all things that you take into account for when you move into a space or you live in a space, because, a queer-friendly neighborhood means you're not getting stink-eye going to the grocery store. You're not, getting looks when you're walking down the street, or you're presenting in a certain way and people walk up to you and go, hey, those boots look really good on you, or that dress looks really good on you. When you live in a queer positive neighborhood, that happens all the fucking time. When you don't live in a queer positive neighborhood, it becomes a different story entirely. It really does. So now I'm going to pick on Brandon.
Well, even if there aren't queer positive neighborhoods, just the apartment building you're moving into could be, you need to kind of take a look at that, and like when you walk out your door, the person across the hall from you, are they, what are they like? How are their feelings about queer community? And are you going to get this? Are you going to have problems every time you meet in the hallway or see one another or whatnot? But well, going back to your story, the way things are going, I kind of wish I would get deported. I don't know where I would get deported to. I mean, this is where I was born, so I'm not sure where they would send me. I'm not sure what he would be talking about. Deport us? Where are they going to deport us?
Yeah, the dude in the Kroger. I mean, the MAGA mentality is severely a confined emotional spectrum that lacks a specific amount of intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe there's
amount of intelligence.
Is there an island somewhere like Fire Island or something? If there were like, if they send all the gays to Fire Island, I'm okay with that. That sounds awesome. But anyway, yeah, I kind of am where I'm living now. It's I'm in a rural area and it's cheap. I can afford to live here and still do freelance writing and my Substack and everything. And so I choose that over moving to a more urban area where I know I'd have to pay a lot more for rent and I would have to find another job or an additional job or whatever. But I don't know. There's definitely positive and negatives about either scenario. Do you live in a place where you have more community, but you have to go to a job that you hate every day? It's
No.
kind of I was at a job that I hated, and working with people that were very negative, and I just looked at the clock and it seemed to be moving backward, and I would go home and dread going back the next day. And I don't want to have to deal with that. I mean, if I'm able to do what I love every day, and then I have to travel a little bit to find activities and community, for right now, at least I'm okay with that. I hope to build up what I'm doing, and maybe I could afford to have both. But that's asking a lot, you know. I don't know if that's even possible, but I'd like for that to happen eventually.
I don't. That's not unreasonable. You know, one of the issues that I ran into taking the job where I work now, it was less pay, so it wasn't market rate, but I've been writing enough that, you know, I'm into 5 figures on my publication. You know, I made my $10,000 on my publication like 2 months ago, and so it just inches up. And so, so I took a lower paying job, and the company billed itself as progressive. This is actually a very heartwarming story, so I'll just tell it. So, I had been out of work for like 5 months, and you know, I was desperately trying to get work. And so I would present as female in my interviews, and then the minute, you know, they would ask me, I would tell them I'm a trans person. I was transparent, and I'd get hung up on. And so when I interviewed where I work now, I didn't shave for 5 days. I shaved my head, like made sure my head was shaved all the way down. And the day of the interview, I was late to the interview because I was eating lunch or whatever, and then it went out of my head, and I was like, "Oh shit, I gotta go get on a call." And so I went and just grabbed a shirt out of my closet, not paying attention to what shirt I was grabbing, put it on, and then got on the call with this girl and talked to her for like half an hour. So she says to me, she says, "I have a question," and I said, "Okay." And the interview went really well. I mean, you know, I knew all the answers to her questions. I knew all the technical details of what she was asking, et cetera, et cetera. And so she tells me, she says, "You know, you listed your chosen name as this," which was my old nickname when I was a kid. Wim, W-I-M. And she says, "You listed that as your chosen name, but I just have a question, and I don't want you to be offended by this." I said, "Okay." And she said, are you a trans person? And I froze immediately. I was like, fuck, here we go. This is it. I'm going to get fucking, and I just like, yes, don't hang up on me. She said, no, I'm not going to hang up on you. And I said, okay, why not? And she said, well, I sort of suspected. And the reason for that is like your email address is blah, 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 girl at whatever. And I was like, yeah. And she said, and you're wearing this shirt, and the shirt says on it, because I had to get up one time in the interview, it says, keep calm and let Wendy handle it. And I completely froze when she said that. I went, shit, here we go. And I said, yes, people call me Wendy. I go by, that is my chosen name. And yes, I'm trans. And she's like, well, don't worry. And I said, why? And she said, because so am I. And I went, oh. And so we talked back and forth. And so she says, the company's based in Canada. So the person I'm talking to is in Hamilton, Ontario. So she says, I know how hard it is for queer people in the space that you live in. And so here's what I'm going to do. Because I told her in the interview, I'm like, I've been trying to get like any job I can get my hands on. I understand if I can't be in a technical role ever again because I'm trans and people are just going to ignore that. And so she says to me, she says, okay, well, I have 6 roles that I want you to interview for. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, 2 of them are technical, and the other 4 of them are like project management positions or whatever. And they pay less, but at least that gets you a job and benefits because I think you deserve that chance. Now, as it turns out, I interviewed for the top paying role, the technical role, and I got it. And so, but it requires me to go up to Sandy Springs, which is not the city of Atlanta. It's actually right behind a place called Perimeter Mall. And so that goes back to the statement, do you live somewhere and then go to a job you hate? And that's what I was afraid of for taking that role. The moment that ceased to be the case, however, was my first day at work. I wore like blue flats and like tight skinny jeans and a cute blouse. And the day went fine, but after my first like orientation meeting or whatever, the HR girl, her name is Jen, I pulled her over and I said, I have a problem. And she said, oh, okay, well, what is it? Because I could probably help you. And I said, okay. And she said, what's the problem? And I was like, I only have 1 pair of jeans. And so she looks at me and she's like, oh, okay. Is this a problem of you not being able to buy more jeans? And I said, no, that's not the problem. And so she looked down and she saw my cute blue flats or whatever. And she went, oh, okay. So I want you to go out to Amazon and find this retailer. The name of the retailer is Urban Cocoa. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, they sell the cutest below knee length black office skirts that you can get. Buy like 8 pair of those, buy 8 of those skirts, and then wear whatever t-shirt you want on top of it and those blue flats, and you'll be fine. It won't be a problem. And if anybody gives you shit about it, you come talk to me and I'll take care of it or whatever. And so that meant that I was working a job that I didn't hate, where I felt included. And so now, I'm looking for another place to live. So I've like spec'd out like the 2 complexes that I can afford. I will tell everybody my rent for this house is almost $4,000. and it's too much. It's too much to rent this. It's too much to rent this house, and it's too much to pay for the utilities in this house. And so I found an apartment complex that is literally 4 blocks away from downtown Decatur. Downtown Decatur is the other gayest area of Atlanta that there is.
Yes, it is.
And so, that's what you do to find an inclusive neighborhood. And so, yeah, housing in the U.S. is just crazy. It really is. So, honestly, if you live in Marietta, have you had the same challenges?
So I started my transition in Sandy Springs. I lived in Sandy Springs for 13 years. It was, what I found in Sandy Springs is that people mostly left me alone. And there's something called a real life test, which is like Wendy explained, where you dress in your chosen gender. Before you start hormones or HRT. It's kind of insane to me, but I guess whatever. I was walking around, no hormones, like Wendy. The first time, I went out, I was terrified. It was strange, but fine. We didn't really scope out places that were queer friendly. We scoped out places that we could afford and that we could get into pretty quickly because we were coming back from South Florida. And South Florida was not the place to be in terms of, for me, in terms of transition. It was really, there was this machismo, this level of, I don't want to say misogyny, but misogyny, and like, all I can explain it is like cologne and muscle cars. And that just, it wasn't my vibe. So now we moved to Marietta. So first of all, I started working at a job like I hadn't worked for 3 years. So I was looking for jobs mainly in customer service, or like building system specialist. I worked in energy management systems. And so I was looking for a job, wasn't having any luck. Found a job on Indeed, interviewed, and I was like, you know what? I'm going into this interview dressed in like a cute dress, some like nine hole, or I don't remember the whole Doc Martens, some socks up to my knees, knee-high socks. And I was just going to rock it, if they said something shitty, then they say something shitty, like, I'll find another job. I walked into that job. I killed the interview, found out later that out of the however many people, 60 or 70 people who were employed by this company, there were 4 cis hetero people throughout the entire time I was working there. So I was around a lot of queer people, a lot of trans, a lot of non-binary, a lot of gay and lesbian, so on and so forth, bisexual people, ace. There was a lot going on, and to the fact that it was also a magical shop and a bookstore, so it had cats and crystals, and it was my vibe, and I was able to dress the way I wanted, dress in a style that fit me, and it allowed my personality come out more, and it allowed me to explore my gender further without necessarily having any restrictions on how I dressed. and the now at my apartment complex where I live, what we made sure of when we moved in here, first of all, is that it was safe. It is smack in the middle of East Cobb, so East Cobb is East Cobb. When I moved to East Cobb in 1989, it was like 98% white. It is now like 85% white, maybe. I wanted to make sure, and Egg needed to make sure, we both needed to make sure, because we're an interracial couple, so we needed to make sure that that was going to be okay for both of us. That is something that we've had to deal with for 23 years, making sure that we were in spaces that weren't going to harm either her or myself or the both of us. So that is something that we've worked on. Being trans, and especially when I came out, that is something she had to take on as well, in terms of watching out for me, her head on a swivel, watching my back while I'm looking around the front and sides of myself, making sure that I'm safe. I feel safe in Marietta. It's it's a lot safer now than it was back in the day. In my apartment complex, the maintenance people treat me with respect. They, in the beginning, they were like, can I speak with blank? And I was like, this is blank. And they were like, no, I need to speak with blank. And I'm like, well, this is her, and they were like, but so they were a little confused, but they got used to it, and all of them have treated me with respect since then. But yeah, the next place we live will be in a queer space. It will definitely be there. Like I said, I have no problem with where I live, with the exception that it's not outwardly queer friendly, meaning I can't hang flags outside. You can see I've got a flag like in my room, but I can't hang it. I've got one actually on the blinds, but I'm not supposed to. They made me take down my Black Pride, sign. They made me take down my trans sign and my all these signs that I had. So in that respect, it's less accepting, but I don't know if that's more like because apartment wide, they just don't want people like putting up their religion or anything crazy like that. They just want people to be chill. I choose to take it as that and not an affront to me being queer. And that, it's been okay here. I haven't had too much of a problem, but yeah, next place we live will be queer friendly, like super queer friendly. No.
Yeah, these are things that you have to think about, things you have to take into account. I know Sarah wouldn't necessarily have a whole lot of input in this regard. Although, to be fair, Sarah, like, how queer inclusive is Dearborn, Michigan?
I mean, for the most part, it is, but you run into people like you would anyplace else, really.
Right.
I might be the only house on my block that has a pride flag. But there are several other houses that have like flags for Ukraine, flags for Palestine, flags for Lebanon, things like that. I know I've had run-ins with at least one of my neighbors. I don't know what specifically instigated it, but the gentleman alleged to his dog that we were not good people.
I just want to point out that this person's last name was not Berkowitz, right?
I don't know. I don't even know this person's first name.
Yeah, like not Sam Berkowitz Jr. That wasn't his name. I just want to be sure.
Couldn't tell you.
Do you understand that reference?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Sam
I don't either.
Berkowitz, aka the son of Sam,
Oh,
was a mass murderer back in the 70s, 60s and 70s. And he murdered people based on the fact that he got instructions from his dog to kill people.
Oh no, his dog was coming over and like had gotten out of his yard and was coming over and kind of harassing us because we were out working on the lawn, and he came over with a baseball bat trying to wrangle his dog.
a
Okay.
baseball bat.
Yeah, I know. He's yeah.
Yeah, like what was he gonna do with the bat and his dog? Like, how was he? I don't know.
I don't know. It didn't
Maybe you
work
looked
out
like
well.
dog murderers, and he was gonna fight you off.
Dog murderers.
Right. Because we had a dog when at that point, so I mean, aside from
Okay,
that,
I'm just gonna have to call out our reader Eileen, who's in the chat, by the way, who literally just sent me the picture of the coolest fucking heels I've seen. I'll never find them in my size, but those look really cute.
I tried wearing heels once, and I wore them to my gastro appointment, and I swore I would never wear a heel again, and I haven't. It was the most painful experience I have ever had in terms of walking in shoes or heels. So never again. Platforms, yeah, but not heels.
Completely understand. These are things these are conversations we have to have because we're living in spaces, and we're existing in spaces where, look, let's be honest. People are up in Minnesota right now, ICE agents, and they're kicking in doors. They're literally going door to door, kicking in doors to violate people. American citizens at its core. And further still, a queer woman, not literally a week ago, got a face full of bullets because she tried to get away from an ICE agent. He shot her in the face and killed her. And so these conversations, it now becomes necessary for us to have these conversations where, okay, I'm moving into a neighborhood where I know that if somebody comes to my door and starts yelling and screaming that they're going to take me away, that the people around me are not going to tolerate it. If I get called a fucking tranny or sissy or faggot or whatever, and they're trying to drag me out of my home, people around are going to be like, I'm not going to watch that shit. You need to stop that. Because that's what needs to happen. And so that makes these conversations necessary. When I walk outside, who can I upset? Who can I offend? And who will become unhinged because I'm out and behaving this way? And the fact of the matter is, the answer to that question should be nobody. The raw answer is nobody should should be able to do that. And so, that makes it hard. But these are conversations we have to have. These are conversations we have to have. Does anyone have any closing thoughts? You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. You're killing me. Wow, nothing really. Nobody has anything they want to.
Okay, I got some. Stop transphobia. Love the gays. Love all queer people. Love like Black Power. All good stuff. Fuck Trump. Fuck ICE.
Ditto.
Right. We have to consciously study how to be tender with each other until it becomes a habit. And none of these are separate struggles. They're all the same fight playing out across a dozen mundane stages. And the energy that we spend calibrating safety in these spaces, whether that be at family gatherings or finding a home or staring ourselves in the mirror or break rooms at work or going to the fucking grocery store, all of that compounds into a chronic weight that most people never have to carry. And that is the cost of existing while being a queer person. Turning every ordinary moment into a calculation, every simple task into a strategy. But what they don't tell you, the thing they don't tell you, is that survival itself becomes that resistance.
Yes.
Showing up.
Yes.
Being visible when you could hide, still carving out joy in the hostility of the outside world. That's not accommodation. That's defiance. And that's what we've had to do. We've had to do that for the last, 30 years. We'll have to do it for the continuing 30 years. That plays out. So, I'm sorry, everybody. We went over by like 20 minutes. Brandon, if you have another thing going on, I apologize for running you over it.
No, nothing specific. Just on with life and work.
Right. Well, with that, and against, of course, all the people watching who are watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. And then we'll be back on tentatively Thursday, but definitely Friday at 1 o'clock for Trauma Live. Brandon, Onyx, Sarah, thank you. Everybody else that's watching, please be safe out there. Do good things. I can't do this without my band members. We're never breaking the band up, right? Please tell me we're not breaking the band up.
Not that I can tell.
Okay. Let's not break the band up. Because when we go on stage, people react positively, and I want to keep doing that. But I love you all. I can't do this without everybody watching. We can't do this if we don't come together 2 times a week, 3 times a week. And so let's just keep doing that. And with that, I will say, I'm not going to, Edward Murrow, good night and good luck. Even though it's in the middle of the fucking day.